Hello everyone. You've got two bits of paper inside your packs. One is how to register your interest and then some frequently asked questions about the same thing. And I'll refer to this a little during this quick run through that I'll give you on what we're looking for. So Mike's already outlined the purpose of the fund, and just to recap, the sort of projects that we're looking to fund are those that address the current barriers to adopting integrated water cycle management, projects that will enable structural change to the design of buildings, precincts and suburbs, and those that will leave a legacy of improved industry knowledge and awareness of integrated water cycle management. Now, as Mike's already outlined, the office has a broad role of supporting all the players in the water cycle in this transition period, and those projects that are successful in being awarded funding will get support from the office. They'll get access to technical support, peer support, and we'll also facilitate consultation across government agencies as part of the package of providing funding. It's also, as part of its other programs, the office is working to make regulation easier to navigate and to support integrated water cycle management. Now, as Mike has mentioned, the office has gone for a registration of interest process to get a quick scan of what's out there. And it could be well-developed projects that you already have in your top drawer, or it could be just an idea. So going through this registration of interest process allows this to be done fairly quickly before the office makes final decisions on making funding allocations. So what we want to do is identify the sort of organisations that are out there and ideas for the purposes of the funding decisions, which won't be made very far away. They'll be made in February, but we'll come to the timescale a bit later. The other important point that perhaps distinguishes this fund from other, and there are quite a lot of other funding or funds around for integrated water cycle sort of projects, and that any organisation can apply. This isn't just targeting local government and water authorities, who are the traditional targets of funding programs, but any organisation. Although we are looking for incorporated organisations, and I don't think we'll be, individuals won't be eligible. Even though it is very broad, it won't be quite that broad. So how to register. In the how to register your interest leaflet here, there's a set of questions. There's 5 questions that we're asking you to address, and there are word limits between 300 and 500 words in answer to each question, which some of you will find quite challenging, I'm sure. But we want to keep it, as I said, a quick scan. So it's really about who are you, or who's going to be involved, if it's one or more organisations, what's the problem or the barrier to integrated water cycle management you're addressing, what will the project do, and where is it, and the total costs of the project and the proportion of the costs that you're seeking from the fund, and then who are the other stakeholders and what role will they have in the project. We are developing an online form that will be up early next week on the OLV website, and that it actually has those 5 questions set out with the word limit space, but it also has some coded areas like postcodes that are just going to make it easier for us to sort some of the applications. So unless you really urgently want to get your applications in by today, we'd prefer if you use the online form, if you can just wait till then. Next, all those 5 questions are designed to address the selection criteria, which are also set out in this leaflet. We're looking for projects that demonstrate an understanding of the barrier or the barriers to the uptake of integrated water cycle management that they're seeking to address. We'll obviously be looking for the potential of the project to deliver integrated water cycle management. The projects have to be in Victoria, by the way. Sometimes that's perhaps an obvious question, but it needs to be said. We'll also be looking for the the certainty of delivery. So we will actually be looking at the capacity of the organisation or the group of organisations who are making the application. So we'll be looking for well-defined roles and responsibilities, and some information about the experience of the organisation. We're also looking for a legacy of knowledge, knowledge transfer through collaboration with others. So often with new ideas, organisations are looking to keep that new idea to themselves, but we're actually, through the fund, looking for you to share. So who decides? This is often important for people to know. So Mike, okay, the first step is obviously that the project team within the office will gather together all of these registrations of interest and do some analysis, make some recommendations on presumably the preferred projects, have to do some analysis of how much the fund can afford or how it can be divided up. Then they'll provide that analysis and recommendations to a fund committee that's been convened by Mike as the CEO. And that committee is made up of Mike, an officer from the office, and there'll be an independent member. Now the decision of the committee and the way that they apply the selection criteria will be supervised by a probity auditor, just to make sure, and there'll be a probity audit report, which is the usual process with government funding programs. And then Mike will inform the Minister for Water of the committee's decisions about preferred registrations of interest. Key dates. Now, it's really important, obviously, to remember this is the registration of interest stage. The office is going to move very quickly then on to inviting the full funding proposal applications. All of that's going to happen in February. Then in March, we'll need you to be geared up again. Those successful applicants will be asked to put in a full proposal, and then the office will notify successful applicants in April. And then there'll have to be some further work done to develop up the contracts and clearly define the deliverables. So yeah, it's pretty much all hands on deck, and they're all going to be working very long hours in the office during January, February and March. And I think we'll be making you work fairly hard too. Things to keep in mind. Keep to the word limits. You might find it a bit challenging, but the idea is that we don't want you to spend an awful lot of time on detail at this stage. That comes later. We have a hotline, and you can also email your questions to the office. We're very clear, as Mike mentioned, that all applications will be treated equally. So where we get patterns of questions, of similar common questions coming through, we'll actually put those questions and answers on the website so everybody gets access to them. But one thing we'd just make a plea about, don't ring the office and ask for help on what you should actually put in your submission or in your application, because the content isn't something that we can give you advice on. We can advise you on the process and what our objectives are, but the content is your responsibility. And I think that's all from me. Back to Mike.
Thanks, Amanda. Nice that you survived. I was getting very worried there. All right, we ought to get into questions, just briefly. Just to summarise again, we really are looking for project types that are going to influence that institutional change and assist overcoming barriers to change. Help develop precincts and buildings of the future, which is quite ambitious, but we've got to be ambitious. Things like maximising environmental benefit and water system resilience. That's not only economic resilience, but the whole way in which, particularly if you think about it, if you think about the last drought, the degree to which so much of our social infrastructure around things like green areas, sporting facilities, became really quite problematic in terms of our ability to manage it. We're looking for answers to those kinds of problems in a way which makes the whole system a lot more resilient to things like drought. Encourage meaningful innovation. Well, what does that mean? It's partly obviously in the eye of the beholder, but some of it's going to be disruptive, some of it's going to be incremental, but it's got to, in a sense, move the system forward a bit in terms of its learning and understanding. It brings ideas and knowledge from other areas and jurisdictions. I've always been a great fan in any organisation I've been in to say, go out and find ideas from other people and beg, borrow and, well, I won't say steal them, that would be inappropriate, but there's an awful lot of knowledge out there that in a sense can be brought in. Like the kind of stuff that I was talking about earlier about option thinking, about deferral of capital is one element of that story. But there are other areas and domains in thinking about these kinds of problems that I'm sure you can bring to bear, and from our point of view that will be extremely valuable. The other thing I would say there is that my reading of Australia, in particular Victoria, that we start with a tremendous opportunity in that there is quite an awful lot of embedded knowledge already. One of the challenges I think that I've found in looking, as I've come in new to this, about where the knowledge is that it tends to be in disparate places and it's not brought together. One of the things that we're going to do is try and bring all that together and share it, but your work will actually help that immeasurably as you bring your ideas to us. And as I said, you're going to face risks, we're going to face risks, we're going to try and share those risks in developing, new approaches and technologies. And by the way, when I mean technologies, I don't mean just widgets. I mean new ways of thinking about the management, analysis and management of difficult problems. A lot of the innovation that happens in the world is actually not driven by technology, although a lot of it is. It's new ways of thinking about problems and managing them. And I'm sure that that's true from a community co-production perspective, where we do need to think our way through that a bit better. So that's a rather extended story of how and what and the why.